Did you know that millions of years ago, humans were physically weak, yet we were the ones who survived while many enormous predators eventually disappeared? Our ancestors had no razor-sharp claws, no long fangs, and no lightning-fast speed to defend themselves. And yet, through strategies that seem almost impossible, they slowly transformed themselves from easy prey into something even giant predators had reason to fear. That story begins at a time when humans were still being hunted, when humans became the prey. In fact, our ancestors were once a regular target for many of the giant predators roaming the ancient grasslands. Archaeologists have found fossilized human bones bearing tooth marks left by ancient leopards and hyenas. Saber-toothed cats, enormous crocodiles, and large predatory birds also shared the world around them. For early humans, survival began with one simple challenge: avoid becoming someone else's meal. Many people imagine our ancestors as ruthless hunters from the very beginning, but the reality was almost the exact opposite. For millions of years, humans occupied a dangerous position near the lower end of the food chain. They were not born as master hunters. Their first great struggle was learning how to defend themselves well enough to avoid becoming dinner for far stronger animals. Before humans learned how to hunt large prey, they first had to learn how to survive it. Life became even more dangerous when our ancestors spent more time on the ground and began walking upright, placing themselves in the middle of a deadly struggle for survival. On open ground, they could no longer escape into the trees as quickly as many other primates could. Vast grasslands offered little cover, making humans easy to spot from a distance. That pressure forced our ancestors to find a new solution: make predators think twice before attacking. Their greatest advantage was not muscle, but intimidation, a strategy sometimes compared to what scientists call aposematism. Instead of always hiding or fleeing like vulnerable prey, humans could make themselves highly visible, noisy, and threatening in front of danger. The goal was to convince a predator that approaching the group might come with serious consequences. Humans did not necessarily have to overpower the beast. They only had to make the beast believe that attacking them was not worth the risk. The power of terrifying noise. While other apes often try to remain quiet on the ground to avoid attracting predators, humans began doing something very different. Chimpanzees and gorillas can become extremely cautious when exposed in dangerous areas. Our ancestors, however, may have relied more heavily on shouting, calling, and making noise together in the middle of open country. It sounds counterintuitive, but that behavior made the group seem far less like frightened prey trying to disappear. Collective vocalization may have become one of humanity's earliest defensive weapons. Loud group calls could announce from a distance that a large number of humans were nearby. Faced with an unusual wall of noise, a predator might hesitate and decide that an easier target would be safer. In this way, even a vulnerable group of humans could make a powerful hunter reconsider whether approaching was worth the danger. And these sounds did not have to resemble the pleasant melodies we think of as music today. Harsh cries, rough tones, repeated shouts, and clashing voices could create an intense and threatening atmosphere. When many people produced those sounds at once, a small group might seem much larger than it really was. To a predator listening from the darkness or tall grass, a handful of humans could suddenly sound like an angry force far too dangerous to challenge. Humans could make that noise even more powerful by adding rhythm through clapping, stomping, and striking objects together. When an entire group moved and produced sound at the same time, the result could become a powerful wall of coordinated noise. Humans are unusually skilled at synchronizing their movements and rhythms with one another. And that coordination did more than confuse predators. It also helped the group move, react, and face danger together. That shared rhythm could also create an intense psychological state, sometimes described as a battle trance. Moving, chanting, and acting in synchrony can affect the brain in ways that strengthen group bonding and reduce the feeling of fear or exhaustion. One person might panic when facing a predator alone, but a tightly coordinated group could feel far more confident and determined. Humanity's advantage was never claws or fangs. It was the ability to stand together when something stronger came for them. Few solitary predators would willingly charge into a tightly packed group of humans shouting, singing, and moving wildly together. The group's unity and overwhelming noise could make an attack far more dangerous than confronting a single person. A predator might be stronger than any individual human, but against a crowd reacting as one, the risks multiplied quickly. In that sense, music and coordinated sound may have been more than entertainment. They could also serve as a powerful shield against danger. How humans looked bigger. Loud noise was only part of the illusion. Standing upright on two legs also made humans appear taller and more imposing to four-legged predators. When an entire group rose together, the effect became even more intimidating. An upright posture also gave humans a better view across open grasslands, helping them detect approaching danger from farther away. And our ancestors had other ways of making their relatively small bodies seem even larger. Wild hair and exaggerated movements could add to that effect. Thick, raised hair could make the head appear larger and more unusual, while spreading the arms and swaying the body increased the visible outline of a person. Faced with a predator, a human could suddenly look wider, taller, and much harder to read. A physically vulnerable animal could therefore create the appearance of something far more threatening. Body decoration may have made that display even more striking. Early humans used materials such as clay, mud, and natural pigments on their bodies, creating bold and unfamiliar patterns. In nature, conspicuous colors sometimes serve as warning signals, so unusual visual displays can make an animal hesitate. A group of upright creatures shouting, moving together, and covered in unfamiliar colors would certainly look very different from ordinary prey. Even human scent may have helped predators recognize that a group of people was nearby. Many carnivores have an extremely sensitive sense of smell and can detect animals long before seeing them. At night, the combined scent of many humans gathered in one place could advertise the presence of a large group rather than an isolated victim. But if a predator ignored every warning and came too close, humans needed a completely different response. At close range, one of the most important rules was simple. Do not immediately turn and run. Sudden flight can trigger pursuit behavior in large cats and other predators, while exposing the back makes a person look even more like escaping prey. Instead, humans could hold their ground and remain intensely focused on the threat, a response sometimes described as a form of aggressive freezing. This kind of stillness sends a very different message from panic. Instead of fleeing, a person remains upright, faces the predator, and shows no obvious sign of easy surrender. Maintaining attention on the animal and refusing to turn away can make the encounter less predictable for the predator. Rather than seeing helpless prey, it now faces an opponent that may be prepared to fight back. Humans also learned that isolation on the open grasslands was extremely dangerous, so survival increasingly depended on living in groups. Stronger members could join together to confront predators, while many people shouting, advancing, or throwing stones created a threat no single person could produce alone. A predator might confidently target an isolated human, but attacking an entire group carried far greater risk. Cooperation went beyond simply fighting predators. Archaeological evidence shows that some ancient individuals survived serious disabilities or severe tooth loss for years, suggesting that other members of their group helped care for them and provided food they could manage. Protecting vulnerable individuals helped preserve the social group rather than abandoning anyone who could no longer survive alone. The survival of one person could therefore contribute to the strength, knowledge, and stability of everyone around them. The weapon hidden in our arms. And one of humanity's most important defensive abilities may have been built on anatomy that evolved long before humans became expert throwers. The flexible shoulders of our ape ancestors were useful for climbing, hanging, and controlling movement through trees. Over millions of years, changes in the human shoulder, torso, and arm created a body capable of storing and releasing remarkable amounts of energy during a throw. Once humans were spending more time on the ground, that inherited anatomy would become the foundation for an entirely new advantage. Once humans became more fully adapted to life on the ground, that flexible upper body became something remarkably useful for throwing. The human shoulder and torso can store elastic energy during the throwing motion, then release it rapidly as the arm whips forward. Anatomy that had once been important for moving through trees was gradually repurposed into a powerful long-range advantage. For the first time, humans could strike a dangerous predator without having to get within reach of its claws or jaws. Humans are exceptionally good at throwing objects with both speed and accuracy. Even chimpanzees, despite their tremendous upper body strength, cannot match the combination of velocity, control, and precision achieved by humans. That ability transformed ordinary stones lying on the ground into potentially dangerous long-range weapons. And when a predator was charging directly toward the group, the value of accurate throwing became even greater. In some ways, throwing stones in self-defense could be simpler than using them against fleeing prey. A charging predator was moving directly toward the thrower, rapidly closing the distance and presenting a more predictable target. Humans did not have to chase it down. The danger was coming straight toward them. At extremely close range, several people could also use heavier stones as desperate defensive weapons. But stones alone could only do so much. When rocks were no longer enough, wooden spears gave humans another way to keep dangerous animals at a distance. Some of the oldest surviving wooden spears are more than 2 meters long and were carefully shaped from strong wood. Their length allowed the person holding them to threaten an animal without immediately entering the reach of its teeth and claws. A spear could be thrust forward, or, in some cases, thrown, giving humans a far more effective way to confront large predators. Even the famous stone hand axes carried by ancient humans have sometimes been proposed as possible throwing weapons, although that idea remains debated. These tools were often sharpened on both sides and carefully shaped into balanced, symmetrical forms. Some researchers have suggested that certain examples might have been thrown when necessary, potentially giving humans another way to strike from a distance. But no matter how useful stones, spears, and cutting tools became, one enemy still gave predators an enormous advantage: darkness. Fire changed everything. The mastery of fire changed that relationship dramatically. Fire could provide warmth, light, and a powerful deterrent against animals approaching a human campsite at night. A burning hearth created a bright, unfamiliar zone that many predators would hesitate to enter. By keeping flames alive near their resting place, early humans could create a small island of relative safety in a landscape filled with dangerous animals. Before humans became capable of reliably making fire whenever they needed it, they may have depended heavily on flames taken from natural fires. Burning branches from lightning-caused fires could be carried back and carefully preserved. Losing the fire might mean losing one of the group's most valuable sources of warmth, light, and protection. Dry plant material, animal dung, and other available fuels could help keep it burning. From that point on, the night no longer belonged entirely to predators. Firelight also weakened one of the greatest advantages of nocturnal hunters: concealment. Instead of hearing movement somewhere beyond the darkness, humans could see animals approaching the edge of the illuminated camp. Threats that once remained invisible until they were dangerously close could now be detected earlier. Fire gave humans more opportunities to watch predators from relative safety, learn their behavior, and anticipate how they might approach. And once humans understood their enemies better, an even bolder idea became possible. Eventually, humans did more than simply defend themselves from predators. Groups could sometimes turn the tables and drive carnivores away from carcasses, using numbers, noise, stones, and weapons to make confrontation too costly. Instead of always fleeing from large predators, humans could approach collectively and pressure them into abandoning meat they had already obtained. This risky form of scavenging gave humans access to valuable animal food without requiring them to kill every animal themselves. The transformation from vulnerable prey into one of the planet's most influential species was driven less by claws, fangs, or raw strength than by intelligence and cooperation. Group vocalizations, coordinated movement, social bonds, tool use, and the willingness to defend one another all became powerful advantages in a dangerous world. Our ancestors did not survive because they could outrun every predator or overpower every beast alone. They survived because humans learned how to think together, act together, and protect one another when strength by itself was not enough.